know, we've had amazing leadership in the world of entrepreneurship and innovation at ASU. So let's actually take a moment and go back down memory lane. So
Sure.
when you and I first met, I had just started as the program manager of our acclaimed Edson Student Entrepreneurship Initiative at ASU, which was funded by a $5.4 million endowment to the university from the Edson family. And Orrin Edson was the founder of Bayliner Marine Company. So it's been an extreme honor for me, to start my entrepreneurial career at ASU, managing that particular, gift and how it impacted students. And so I think my boss at the time, Gordon McConnell, he was an amazing entrepreneur that we brought over from Ireland. And I distinctly remember on my first day of work, he brought up this idea that he had been talking about with you and other folks from the Tech Transfer Office about challenging our students who had received seed funding from that program to take it to the next level in the ecosystem. Mm-hmm. So instead of the program over the prior years being kind of insular to ASU, we wanted to make the world, or at least the Valley, or at least the state, aware that we had some of the best and brightest students being seed funded at the level of $5,000, $10,000, $20,000, and then we had additional supporters come in, you specifically, to say let's take it to the next level. Let's give them some more funding to get to market.
Yeah.
And that's when we did our first demo day. Was powered by Michael Hool and the Hool Coury Law Group. So thank you for getting us into that phase. I would classify that as the accelerator phase of our venture development work at ASU. Prior to that, it was
prior to that, it was I had worked with some other folks at ASU. Now remember, a lot of things were in transition. The whole new mindset changed with President Crow coming along. It took a few years to get people kind of thinking entrepreneurially the way that they do now. So there was a lot of transition, and it was not clear, who was going to be running what. So I worked with folks, pre-Gordon McConnell, and then Gordon was hired, and I was introduced to Gordon. We said, what can we do? Let's, and we came up with this idea, let's get ASU to compete with U of A. And the primary reason why we said that was because everybody said ASU and U of A will never do anything together. And we go, okay, then that's a challenge. We're going to do that. And it worked.
Yeah, it was great.
And what we found is, entrepreneurs are kind of universal. They don't really care where you come from. So they like competing with each other, and they like seeing who's got what ideas and collaborating and all that kind of stuff. So it just seemed natural, and it grew from there. So that demo day for the Edson students then very rapidly evolved into what you're describing as a series of annual, I think we called it the Arizona Collegiate Venture Challenge, the ACVC. Mm-hmm. And Michael and I think we should give a shout out to Scott McIntosh, who was an early supporter of that program. And to share that style of programming with my colleagues at the University of Arizona and Northern Arizona University, as well as Grand Canyon University, got involved in the latter years. That was really opening the aperture of collaboration among the state schools and shining a spotlight on what's happening in the realm of innovation. And at that same time, a lot of things with Venture Devils were kind of blowing up, and there were all kinds of things going on. So, we supported that, but like I said, we started to focus our efforts. So after a few years of this collegiate venture competition, which was incredibly fun, other things started to come online, like the ASU Innovation Open, which, I was a sponsor of that for 2 years. Yeah. And it was just really cool. And you can tell the story of Nick, so I don't have to. But it it was. I'm a big fan of if entrepreneurs say they're going to start a company, then the best thing for them is to say, okay, let's see how you are against your competition, because that's the real world. We want to take you out of academia and say, you want to say you're going to do something, then prove it. And so that's the whole idea behind these little friendly competitions for not huge amounts of prize money, but it means a lot if you have nothing. So, and that's how it evolved. And once the ASU Innovation Open became bigger and we had corporate sponsors and things, it was cool to see ASU entrepreneurs competing not just against people from the state, but MIT, Harvard, these teams from other big schools, and to have ASU prevail was really incredible. It was fun.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought up ASU.io, because that ultimately became kind of the next phase of the ACVC statewide competition. But before we transition into that broader impact that your giving has had on our students at ASU and beyond, we got to tell the story about the last ACVC competition, or I'm sorry, the second to last competition was held in Tucson. I'll never forget this. There was a student who was in the final round, and I think, Michael, you asked if you were awarded this prize, and the final prize on the line was, I believe, 10 grand. Mm-hmm. If you were awarded this prize, what would you do with it? And his name was Keith, and Keith Ryu, and I'd been working with him for a couple of years through the Edson program and elsewhere, and he was keen on creating a company and creating value. And do you remember what he said to
I don't remember specifically what he said to that question. I know he didn't win. He won like second place.
He did. He got so he's still vying for the top prize, but his response was something to the effect of, if you give me that money, I'm going to bolt out of this room and basically go do it.
Yeah.
And you could sense the urgency in his voice. And I think, I don't know who beat him out, but ultimately we reconnected with him, I believe it was 2 or 3 years later, in Silicon Valley, in San Francisco. He told us a story. He had taken that prize money of, let's just say it was $10K, and that's all the cash he had in his bank account. He moved to San Francisco, set up his company, hired his first few developers, and now they're, last I heard, they raised $10 million.
Yeah.
His company is now called Fountain, and they optimize employee onboarding through all sorts of forms, documents, and otherwise. So it was so great to see him in San Francisco and retell that story about how your gift got him, going in the direction.
Yeah, and actually, that's part of the reason, for people like me that support these things, that energizes us. It's like you see the real fruit of your money and your labor. But we were just on a tour. We were taking students around to Silicon Valley, visiting different startups, and I was actually had no idea. And so we're like, we go to visit these companies, and we're sitting there, and all of a sudden he starts talking, and he starts telling the story, and it's like, wait a minute,
I remember
I know that guy. So it was kind of cool that the point is, there's a lot of things that you do that you don't realize the effects of it. So you just have to have faith and trust that it will produce fruit and it will multiply. So that's why we keep doing it. You don't always see results, and a lot of things fizzle. I mean, like entrepreneurs, you have to assume a big chunk of them are, when the going gets tough, they're going to go home. But the ones that were like Keith, they will persevere. And I've always said, you either have the gene or you don't. And if you have the gene, nothing you can do will suppress it for your whole life. Eventually, it will manifest itself. And the only way to deal with it is to do something about it. And I think he's the kind of guy that, he just had to do something about it.
Yeah.